And session 4 will be dealing with the future of Dutch international collaboration of vocational and higher education and research, and will be hosted by William Sanchez, Saxion University of Applied Sciences, with collaboration from Dirk-Jan Koch, Chief Science Officer, Ministry of Foreign Affairs, and Lindy van Vliet, Royal Tropical Institutes.
As said, we will be having a lot of interactions. The program today is divided into 3 parts. The first part is 2 videos to kick off this session, to frame your mindset. As you know, the future of international cooperation is a big and a hot subject. We will be trying to channel your thoughts through the 2 videos. To kick off the session, I would like to just make a short statement that the future is being influenced by 3 main themes in the last year. As you already have known through the Orange Knowledge Program, the SDGs have entered the arena. It is not a contested subject. It is more like, yes, we agree about the SDGs, but then how to implement that into the area of international cooperation. Secondly, the COVID epidemic has changed the geographic, the health and economic situations of all countries in the world, has had a big impact on education. And of course, that will have also a big impact on our international relations. And one of those impacts is the accelerated digitalization of education. So the question is not why we should have international cooperation. The question is more like, how should we react to these big themes, these big changes in the international cooperation arena? And the challenge to you as participants is to bring up the top 3 do's and don'ts, the so what and so hot items in what should we do with the current policies and the upcoming programs. We have 2 resource persons at this moment in our room. We have Lindy van Vliet will be reacting to the video. She is from the KIT, Knowledge Institute of the Tropics. And we have Dirk-Jan Koch, who is the Chief Scientific Officer of the Ministry of Foreign Affairs. So if you just allow me for a few seconds to share my screen, we will start off with a video. Before that, any questions at this moment, please use the chat. You can thumbs up, hearts. Let's see if you know how to use the chat. So you can give a big thumb like this, which will disappear in a few seconds. I think everybody knows how to use the chat. A raised hand will be looking like this. And you can lower the hand. I can lower them also for you. Big thumbs up. So I will be sharing the screen and we'll be starting a video with Hans van der Kwast from the IHE Delft. Just a few seconds. And I hope that everybody can see my screen. And let's check if I also have the sounds also in sharing mode. Okay. So this is a program of today. Everybody's checked into the breakout room. We had a short introduction to the session. And we'll be having about 40 minutes of triggers and interactions through video of Hans van der Kwast. We have a guest from the south, Dr. Sidiyai Ba, who's also sent a video message to you. We have 2 resource persons who will react to the video and react to your reactions in the chat. And hopefully at the end we'll have a top 3 so what and so hot. And I will summarize before we go back to the main room. So let's kick off with Hans van der Kwast, who has a very good video on the future of international cooperation. And if there's something wrong with the sound, just let me know. I'll be looking through the screen.
Good morning. I'm Hans van der Kwast, Senior Lecturer at IHE Delft Institute for Water Education. Unfortunately, I can't be live with you today, but I would like to present a few points for discussion related to the future of Dutch international cooperation of vocational and higher education and research. I would like to talk about the paradox in our international capacity development and research programs. The Netherlands works in many regions in the Global South on different themes. Those themes, however, are bound by the Dutch thematic priorities, which are determined by policymakers. However, we also would like to be needs-driven and match with the agendas of our partners, ideally. But this contrasts with each other. Also, the regions where we work are determined by policymakers through the Dutch regional priorities. These can even shift on a shorter term than the thematic priorities. And these, in return, hamper the long-term cooperation with partners and doesn't allow to work together on long-term cooperation on capacity development. It also shows that there's a lot of inequality in working together. How could we work in a more equal way together? How can we create impact with more equality in international capacity development? Should we maybe invest more in knowledge networks than having those priority themes and priority regions that are mostly determined by ourselves? And should we then not invest more in innovation and reducing inequities in global and local knowledge infrastructures, so we can increase the capacity of the network as a whole, including the Netherlands as a partner of such a network? I'm curious how you think about this and how we can create a more cooperation and achieve higher impact together. Wish you a nice discussion.
I think we had some problems with the sound. Let's see if I can increase the sound for the next video. The main points of Hans was about how to create equality, how to tackle the inequalities in the relations between the North and the South. And the second point is how to invest in networks which would increase the impact of international cooperation. Those were the two main points of Hans. So let's see if we can get some interaction started here. Who agrees to these questions? How do you feel about these questions? Maybe you could put something into the chat at this moment. You could say, agree, I disagree, or did we miss any items at the moment? Agreement with import to develop equal and long-term relations, more demand-driven, focus on equality and working together. So I see that there is a agreement on the start of Hans. Then I would like to invite you also to listen to the Voice of the South. We have a guest from Mali, and I will show you a video with thanks to the Knowledge Institute of the Tropen, one of the alumni. And if you just give me 1 second to adjust the screen. So 3, 2, 1, here's the video.
To everyone, I'd like to introduce myself. I am Priska Zwaneke, Senior Advisor at KIT Health. And I'd like to introduce our discussion with Dr. Ba. He is the president of the Association of Private Medical Schools in Mali. These private medical schools train 30% of the health workers in Mali, the basic level. And we're working with them to improve their management and to include sexual and reproductive health and rights, as well as gender and social inclusion in their curriculum. So hereby Dr. Ba, what he thinks about our questions.
Je pense que le renforcement de capacités peut être amélioré si davantage nous essayons de voir ensemble les préoccupations qui sont les nôtres afin que nous puissions développer le renforcement de capacités par rapport à nos besoins. Parce que, comme je le dis souvent, il faut que le meilleur expert d'un problème, c'est celui qui le subit. Donc, je pense que ce serait bien que désormais, si cela est possible, bien sûr, que nous essayons de voir ensemble, qu'on fasse une rencontre avant même le projet pour qu'on puisse ensemble élaborer les renforcements des capacités qui sont nos besoins. Nous aimerons, comme je l'ai dit au tout début, que nous puissions élaborer ensemble les projets. C'est-à-dire que, parce que c'est vous-même qui nous avez montré ça, hein, la démocratie participative, où on fait participer tout le monde. Et ça a tellement d'impact que c'est bien de faire des bonnes choses. Et ça, je vais citer Nelson Mandela qui dit que tout ce qui est fait pour nous, sans nous, est contre nous. C'est-à-dire qu'il faut que nous soyons là et que nous faisons ensemble ce qu'on fait pour nous. Parce que je pense que vous êtes déjà là-dessus, c'est de mettre un réseautage. Parce que vous savez, même récemment, nous sommes en train de nous rendre compte, et j'ai beaucoup de difficultés avec des nouveaux partenaires qui sont en train de venir, qui veulent refaire la même chose, alors que les fonds sont disponibles. Bon, moi, je pense que si on arrive à mettre en place un réseautage, je pense que c'était pas prévu tout à fait, mais vous vous êtes adapté. C'est des exemples qui font que on peut, avec ce réseautage, pouvoir concentrer, faire une synergie d'action. Au lieu de faire tout le monde la même chose dans la même zone, que les uns et les autres puissent faire avec les moyens que nous avons, avoir une plus large action. Moi, ce que je voudrais dire, et ça, c'est vraiment ça, j'y tiens beaucoup, c'est d'essayer de voir, de ne pas que ce partenariat ne finisse pas avec le mois de mars 2022. Parce que je pense que nous avons commencé les choses ensemble et il serait bien que nous puissions pérenniser ce partenariat. Il ne faut pas que ce soit toujours effectivement que ce soit un partenariat basé sur des finances. C'est vrai que les finances, c'est très important pour nous, c'est essentiel pour nous, mais que ce soit un partenariat aussi basé sur le donnant-donnant. C'est-à-dire que nous puissions avoir des échanges. Et je pense que le jumelage, pour moi, est une des qualités qui peut se permettre de faire des jumelages entre certaines écoles chez vous et certaines écoles chez nous. Et pourquoi pas des échanges entre les jeunes néerlandais et les jeunes maliens pour que nous puissions créer ce qui existe déjà, et c'est l'amitié entre les Pays-Bas, parce que nous, maintenant, on vous considère comme des amis, et à travers vous, on considère aussi le Pays-Bas comme un pays ami, avec qui nous voulons avoir des relations, parce que c'est des relations saines. Parce que vous avez cette approche qui nous touche beaucoup, où on peut recevoir sans être humilié. C'est-à-dire que vous prenez en compte nos réalités, et vous nous faites comprendre que oui, nous avons eu des difficultés, nous avons compris que ces difficultés existent, mais nous venons vous aider pour que vous aussi, on ne sait jamais, demain aussi, vous puissiez vous en sortir et pourquoi pas rester des grands amis. Vraiment, nous apprécions beaucoup votre façon de faire. Parce qu'on ne vient pas nous dire, voilà ce que vous faites. Même cette rencontre, c'est pour nous prendre notre avis. Et ça nous touche beaucoup et ça nous rend fiers d'avoir des amis comme vous.
Thank you very much, Lindy, for sharing the video. It was great to see Dr. Ba, and I think he has a very, very powerful message to everybody. Before we move to our two resource persons, this exercise in PowerPoint presentations in Zoom, well, if you think that's happening in the Netherlands between us today at this last 50 minutes, this happens to me every day when we work with partners in Yemen, Vietnam, Suriname. It happens all over the world. So this is just a flavor of how it works when you are working with equalities in the North and the South. Digitalization brings us together, but we also have the same challenges. We have 4G, they have 3G, and everybody is into technical cooperation through digital ways. So this is the everyday reality. So thank you for your patience, and let's go back to the content. Two strong messages, one from Hans van der Kwast and one from Dr. Ba. Any initial reactions in the chat, please? What do you think of these messages? Is it still in the frame of what you expect from this workshop, or did we miss an essential message? Or are you having technical difficulties like some of us are? It's quite still in the chat. So Lindy, may I ask you to give your first impression on the two videos and the topic of today's seminar?
Yes, thank you, William. And indeed, very inspiring words, both of Hans and of Dr. Ba. And I think a lot of connections between them, quite so that's nice that actually what our partners would like us to do resonates with some of the ideas that we ourselves have. And I was thinking before I prepared for this seminar, I have an image that I wanted to share with you. and it's this image. I hope you see it. And it's actually a knowledge map of the world, because if we would map all scientific research outputs in peer-reviewed journals, we would get this kind of division, which is quite telling, I think. So let me stop to share. I think the image is clear. So this inequality in knowledge and the injustice actually in knowledge is much more urgent, I think, than we sometimes feel it is. So this call from Dr. Ba to really establish a network and to really make knowledge and capacity building about local agendas and agenda setting by our partners, and then us actually following that and seeing where we can add value, but also appreciating existing knowledge and finding ways to give that knowledge a wider audience, and maybe also here in the Netherlands itself. So this is this reciprocal learning and exchange that Dr. Ba was also referring to. And I think, yeah, we really can be much more innovative in that. And I think we really lose ourselves sometimes in bureaucratic procedures, in setting all kind of measures in control to control funding, which I understand. Of course, there is funding involved. We have to be accountable on funding. But we really do have to question ourselves whether the way we work really supports true equal partnerships and the kind of change in knowledge inequality in the world, and the kind of networking we are calling for. Actually, Dr. Ba and both Hans were calling for. So I'm really curious what you think about this, and I'm really curious to learn how practically we could do this, and maybe we could come up with some very concrete ideas in that respect. So without taking more time and leaving more room for discussion, very curious about your thoughts.
Thank you very much, Lindy, for your reflection on the two videos. Are there any initial reactions to Lindy? If not, I would like to also refer to our second resource person, Dirk-Jan Koch, from the Chief Science Officer of the Ministry of Foreign Affairs. In the meanwhile, I will look into the chat. Thank you very much, Dirk-Jan.
Hi, everybody. Good to see you today here, and I'm glad to share with you a couple of my thoughts. So I'm as William said, the Chief Science Officer of the Ministry of Foreign Affairs, which means that I don't work on a daily basis at all with the Orange Knowledge Platform, but I am also one day a week professor, special appointment at Rabat University, so very much engaged in international cooperation. I used to be professor at the University of Kinshasa for a couple of years, so yeah, I feel very strongly about this topic, and I'm glad that I can contribute to this more in a personal capacity. And the first thing that really struck me is indeed the impact of COVID, actually, and how it has really operated as a big catalyst for this international classroom. So much more is really possible, and I think that if we look towards the future, yeah, it will dramatically change the way we collaborate. We're so used to have PhD students or master students come to the Netherlands, but I think times are really going to change. That's my personal view. I see it, for instance, in my Rabat University. Our AMIT program used to be very much focused on Dutch students. It's now already a couple of years it's in English, but we have now do it together with the University of Nairobi. We have the first students graduating from the Nairobi University together in an international classroom with Rabat University. And I see, we have this huge winter conference in the Netherlands. Normally there's about 100 or 200 participants, really focused on the capitals, but now there's almost 2,000 people from all islands of Indonesia. So it was much more inclusive actually than it used to be. So I think there's a bright future for international collaboration in the field of research and education. But I would invite all of us, and I think we're the videos already helped us a lot. Let's take a step back, because I feel that the challenges that we face as humanity are so huge now. From climate change to the vaccines to the increasing inequality, and so let's not focus our discussion on how do we assure enough funding for our master students next year. I think there's really bigger stakes at hand. We really have to think about, okay, if we want to tackle those global challenges, how can we do that in the most effective and sustainable way? So, and I think that's also a message to us at the ministry, to really make sure that we develop potential new programs in such a way that we can really maximize this impact. And what I've seen, and this is a question to you actually, is that I see this, and I saw it in the chat already. The Shift the Power movement is quite big. I think Robin Bakker and MDF was referring to it. We see it in the NGOs, in the media, and even in the church now, but this is actually happening sufficiently in education and research collaboration. If you look at the midterm review of the Orange Knowledge Platform, it's quite critical, to be honest, on that side, right? It says local ownership is still limited, equality leaves much to be desired, and I think we should all take that message at heart. So also, and the universities, and the ministries, and the other partners. And even if you look at international rankings, you see that the Netherlands is scores quite low, for instance, on technology sharing. We already saw it in the message from Lindy, the screen. You see that the Netherlands scores very low when it comes to working in consortia, for instance. Often the main applicant or the only applicant for programs is only Dutch, whether it's in the EU or in the Netherlands. So you see that other countries are moving faster to open up their system than we are doing. I think it was also Robin in the chat saying that shouldn't we try to find for more synergies, between, for instance, the Power of Voices or other Dutch programs, even from the private sector. And that's what also struck me. And there was an interview with Thea Hilhorst in Vice Versa, and she also found out that some of the big international NGOs, they have their huge programs, sometimes funded by the embassies. There's universities next door, but they don't collaborate. Where we could really harness that power and have more impact. But let me try to conclude, and some of the questions that I have, and curious to hear your thoughts on. I'm the biggest fan in the world, I think, of PhD research. I have my own PhD students from all across the globe, but I'm wondering whether this is actually the best money spent, to really let those PhD students come to the Netherlands. Isn't it much more effective to actually set up local PhD programs and make sure that they can deliver their own PhDs? The same for the MA students, you see who in the end comes to the Netherlands, they're often upper middle class students. Why not set up more MA programs locally or dual degree programs? I mean, you can maybe reach more people, and after all, this is about development assistance funding, right? And I think that's also one of the remarks in the chat I already saw, and I see there's more remarks coming up, and I'll try to respond to them later, is that, sometimes I feel that we have, from The Hague, we have this big confetti cannon, we're stopping the machine and then we're spreading it all out over the world. But maybe we should give more ownership to the embassies, to universities, to design programs that really are more needs-based than that we can currently do with this system. Well, I have another question on gender issues. We can touch that later. I think it was a quite critical component of the midterm review of the Orange Knowledge Platform, and maybe we should have clearer targets. Just to respond to one question or the video from Hans, there I see that he seems to suggest that, we can be more needs-driven if we just let go of geographic priorities or thematic priorities, and then all will be fine. I have serious doubts about that. I don't think that automatically, if you just let go of that will lead to more ownership or more needs-based assessment. Can also be a risk that the Dutch universities or the Dutch partners will just push down down their own hobby horses. So yeah, I'm open to discussion on that issue. It might be make more sense to actually defragment the program, choose together with local partners some long-term partnerships, and focus, make those needs-based, and try to really add value based on the expertise we have. Okay.
Thank you very much, Dirk-Jan, for your very interesting points, especially on the last comment on Hans. I think that there would have exploded a big discussion between Hans and you and the public. It's too bad he's not here to join us today. But let's see what we can pick up from the others, because the chat has exploded a bit, and I'm trying to look back into what has been given. Let's see, some of the main points was started by Dr. Ba was on friendship. Which is for me, hearing his message yesterday was a very intriguing thought, starting from relations, which we call international relations, back to more human relations such as friendship. Is somebody from the participants willing to say something about that, just to kick off something different than what we've heard before? Please raise your hand or unmute yourself if you would like to say something to that.
Maybe I think it's a very nice theme, friendship, and that was introduced by Dr. Ba. But friendship also takes time, and I see also the remark of Huba that was just made. And, I really think that when we start initiatives with local partners, it really takes time to build trust and to build friendship. It's definitely possible, but sometimes our scope is too short to develop really these long-term bases for good collaboration.
Okay, Tony, your son was a bit soft. So your main point was that friendship takes time, and I would like to paraphrase that it takes time and effort to invest in friendships to build a strong relationship and actually to build a strong network. Because friendship, human trust are basis of networks. Okay. Theodore Kluvas, you are able to hear us again, hopefully. Okay. Yes. May I invite somebody who is not from the Netherlands to react to the points given? Friendship, networks. I know that we have some friends from the NASA offices in the participating. May I ask somebody to give their thoughts?
Yes, William, I think I'm probably one of the few non-Dutch people in the room. Good morning, everybody. I'm Huba Boshoff. I'm the head of NISO South Africa. I'm now in the embassy. And this is a topic that is, of course, for me, very important. I've made a few comments already in the chat. And I think the one thing that Tuan also highlighted is that when we talk about long-term partnerships, it takes a long time. You don't start off from having really in-depth collaboration. You need time to get to know one another. You need to get to know the context that you'll be working in, and getting to know the context goes both ways. From speaking from a South African perspective, although many South African institutions are quite familiar with working with Dutch institutions, there are also some that have never had any projects working with the Netherlands, and that takes time. And you need to create that space, a structured space in programming for people to get to know one another. And I think in that to also realize that the pathway to a long partnership is not straight. And sometimes it's 2 steps forward and 3 steps back, and that as the partnership, you should be willing to take risks and accept that there might also be failures, but that the failures also can lead to impact. And I think very many times in development cooperation and in partnerships, we don't leave room for such failure, and taking the 2 steps back for the better sake of longer term collaboration.
Thank you very much. I saw somebody who raised her hand. Anna, you wanted to react? Please take the mic.
Yes. Well, I think much more in the same idea of friendship, and I think I wanted to react more to the last idea about how yeah, this duality between local programs and bringing students here, whether this is more of yeah, well spent money. I think one of the things that international development cooperation sometimes miss out is in this network formation. I mean, it's been said before, but I think also on the other side of it, how the proponents of cooperation change themselves in the process. This is not only about changing the global south. This is about changing the Netherlands. It's about changing the institutional system that also operates here. Because if we are talking about inequality, there is no way that we can unleash the power that exists in the south if we don't change the relationships. So in that sense, I think it's very important to look at to look beyond the money spent. I completely agree. I think this comes from a very good point that most of these scholarships are benefiting upper middle class students that speak very good English. They are there and they have to go jumps all through these hooks, and for them it's much easier than it would be for a village person in Kenya. But still, when I see what it does in a classroom, in the everyday life, that you have graduate students from the Netherlands connecting with people from Kenya, these changes the Dutch people that will, and that's the main question that we're having this discussion. That's the reason why we're having this discussion, because we came into contact with that reality, I think. So sorry to speak too much, but I think it's an important point.
Thank you, Anna. Before I ask the others to react who have raised their hands, Lindy or Dirk-Jan, would you like to give a short reaction to what has been said yet? These were our strong statements.
Yeah, no, I really wanted to echo what Anna was just saying, because it's about this network, creating this network. So from friendship, which is sometimes a very one-on-one relationship, maybe we should look also at the other point Dr. Bao was making around really building a network and validating knowledge from both sides equally. And I think that's also why deliberately I put up this picture of research outputs. And I very much want to thank Arjan for responding directly to that, because I mean, peer-reviewed research outputs in the Lancet, it's not for nothing that they are all dominated by us in these kind of publications, but is that the only worthy knowledge that can be shared? Even that whole perception of what we validate as knowledge is very interesting, I think, because it's so endemic in the system that these inequalities exist. But on Anna's point of the very practical point of students, it's also coming here and then immediately saying, oh, well, that's, and the statute these students have in their own country. It's very good to look at that critically, but at the same time also not go, too easy on that. So that's not worthy, because I do think that if I look at all the students that we have at KIT, it's not so much the mingling with the Dutch, although it happens too, but it's also the mingling with each other. And we have these international classrooms, and they are building a network, which is actually a network for life. And that's empowering. The fact that 98% of our students return to their home countries, but from there on, they are working in a very strong, international network and this is strongly empowering for them. So I think, again, bring that back to the network thinking. So I would really like us to explore that a bit too together, how we could do that.
Thank you very much, Lindy. Dirk-Jan, some short reactions from your side as well?
Yeah, thanks. So I'm especially listening and reading, and I'm sucking up all information because it's really rich. So thank you so much for this. Yeah, I think it's a point well taken about the duration of the programs, that you shouldn't change overnight because that it can risk to lead to capital destruction. I think some of my columns in vice versa, I wrote also about the importance of being in there for the long haul. I do think I thank you for the creative ideas that I'm reading in the chat. So really enriching. At the same time, I think it's important to do keep in mind that I think that we need this mind shift. For instance, I see that happening since I have the lucky capacity to be both the ministry at the university. So I saw that we have this call for proposals, research call to measure the impact of one of the new civil society programs. And then you see all universities in the Netherlands already building partnerships and consortia, saying, okay, you can do Asia, I'll do Africa. And I really felt that we're back to the conference of Berlin, carving up the world. And how about trying to work together with local partners, local universities, involve them, instead of trying to divide the cake amongst us in the Netherlands? I do think that there's really a change of mindset needed everywhere. I'm not just looking at you, but I think if we really want to move to more equitable relationship, it's involving, like Dr. Ba says, right from the start, the local counterparts, and not just to wait until you have divided basically already the work and the work packages, and then give them a call and say, can you please hand in this form now, because the Southern organizations need to hand it in, So I think there's some work for all of us to do.
Thank you very much. And my hands are itching to take up discussion forward into another room, but let me allow other people to talk. Brenda has been very patient with her hands. Please speak out.
Thank you very much. I'm Brenda from WCDI. I do agree with the network between the Netherlands universities and the southern countries, and especially with the African countries. One of the things that I know that is lacking in the curricula in our southern countries is that we have a lot of theory, and the theory might not necessarily be up to date. So we need to have the partnerships that can look into how do we ensure that the theory that is delivered is brought up to speed to what is being discussed of recent, and also to think through what kind of how can we make it more practical, more competency-based, more relevant to the environment that we are in. So I do agree these networks are necessary, but we also need to think through what kind of, how will the networks interact with each other? What are they bringing on board? There was also that the needs should be southern driven. I would say that we can go for a blended approach, that the southern driven, yes, they have the needs as the countries, but also they need to be, countries need to be also shown, not really shown, shown what is developing, what is coming, what should they be considering. If I may give an example, we are talking so much about food systems of recent, but I'm not quite sure that this is something that would come up really top ranking, especially if it is framed as food systems when it is taken back to the countries. The other thing that I wanted to say, and then I stop, is the Netherlands has a large network of students that are back in the countries. But how is this network being used? Most of them are in the universities, they are in the government. How is the network being used? I feel this is a low-hanging fruit that can be used to start these networks with the Global South. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Brenda. And I see that Erik has also given some comments on your contribution. Erik, will you please unmute and comment?
Yes, I really like the idea of Dirk Jan. Students from Eres University Dronten go to Africa just on their own, without any program, just because they are curious what is going on there, and to explore also entrepreneurial possibilities. I mean, it's not always positive. I saw something like the Dutch flowers industry, but there are a lot of Dutch young students in agriculture who are looking to Africa because they see the possibilities over there, and creating that network vice versa, I think is really something what we can do to ensure relations in the future. Our university has relations with Egerton University in Kenya, so I hope we can find some way that it's easier for both parties to exchange students, and with that also exchanging staff, because I think that can be really a sustainable way of cooperation, that we see each other's possibilities and and in that way create facing the challenges for Africa.
Thank you very much, Erik. I see that Anna has still her hands raised. Anna, is there something which would you like to? Okay. No problem at all. Okay. Thank you very much, Erik. Brenda, one of the things you are saying is touched upon by Dr. Ba. That is the exchange of students, exchange of professors, mobility as a tool to increase equality. As most of you know, that there is a mobility program within the Erasmus, which is available to the Dutch. I may say something wrong, but is there like a consensus here to implement a mobility niche within the, let's say, mobility program within the future Orange Knowledge program? Are you asking for a mobility tool? Is there somebody who would like to comment on that? Because I know that Erasmus is not very easy to apply for, and that's a different framework, a different tool than the Orange Knowledge program. But if you're looking for increasing relations, increasing meeting and friendship and networks, that's asking something else from our program. Or am I helemaal off the chart with this? Any reactions? Dirk-Jan, maybe you could say something about that, about increasing mobility, not just through PhDs, but local research, local networks, how to do that?
Well, I can be quite short, William. I do think that now with the COVID situation, it has shown us the power of blended learning, right? So I do think that even though we want to sometimes have people still physically together, I think we'll find increasing ways of having virtual classrooms for like 80% of the time, 20% of the time people meeting. You can set up longer duration programs in which part of it is together, but part of it is separate. So I think at the university level, I don't have so much doubts that we can succeed. I think, and that's a point some people raise in the chat, that the challenges for the technical and vocational training institutes and for the applied universities are a bit more systematic. You know, it's less theoretical, so you need to see how you can solve that. So I would be curious to hear your views on that, actually, how you can to what extent you can make use of these virtual classrooms for the technical and universities and for TVET.
Okay, thank you very much. Just looking at the time, we have about less than 5 minutes for the last discussions. Are there any pending issues which you would like to have on the table at this moment? In the meanwhile, let me take a look at the chat. I see Charlie, maybe you would like to add something to the discussion. Are you there, Charlie?
Yeah. Yes, I'm here. Do you see me? Yes. Okay. Well, I think exchange could be a really nice option to include in the new Orange Knowledge program. But I think the demand from students, from Dutch students going to the south, will be less than students from the south going to us. So there will be no equal balance in it. So I was thinking, hey, maybe there could be also a program that had the students pay tuition fee for the parts that they are at our universities. But that there are that's a shorter mobility period than a full master. But I think still also full master programs could be really, we should continue with that also. And previously, Dirk-Jan also mentioned the possibility of setting up joint programs, like maybe like double degree programs or something like that. But that could be really interesting. But it always takes a long time to set them up, and So also, yeah, funding should be available also for longer term. So the current OKP structure is a little bit too short for that. So those kind of long-term cooperations and things also need long-term funding available. So that's what I would like to suggest.
Okay. Lindy, I know that the Knowledge Institute of Tropics is very, very keen on sharing a lot of knowledge through blended learning. I've seen some of your programs. Can you share one or two things which should be improved when using this kind of programs? I think your experience at your institute is very great. So
yeah. Well, thank you. No, indeed, and I mean the learning loop on this has been incredible in last year, of course. So I very much agree with Dirk-Jan that there's a lot of potential to explore this further in light of this whole inequality discussion. For example, we really did a whole assessment on who's actually teaching in our courses. And we are now seeing much more opportunities to also involve some of our alumni, some of our contacts and research partners in the Global South to directly teach, because they don't have to come anymore. We just do it online. So that's already a fundamental shift, I think, in terms of, and we really had to take stock of that and go and say no to some of our dear colleagues who have been teaching with us for quite a while, but take a deliberate decision to do that then, instead of continue with our current teaching staff. Another thing is, of course, around also participation of students and also facilitation of courses. We have been trying for quite a while to really get some of our local OKP partners actually accredited to be able to be an education, a module provider in one of our master programs, to do local provision of some of the modules of our master programs. We already have that with a number of European universities, but we would love to have that with some tropical teaching institutes, some global health in the South. And we've done it in Vietnam, but how did we do it? With like 6, 7, 8 OKP programs following all the time on top of each other, building the capacity, getting all the curricula, everything accredited at the right level. And then, the Vietnamese partner institute that we worked with is now a member of the TropEd network, and we can actually provide courses together with them. But we had to be so creative by like stapling all these OKP programs on each other. And thank God Vietnam was for a while a priority country. And we could do that, you know. So I think that resonates with what a lot of people have been saying. Think a bit more structurally and fundamentally on how we could really build capacity in a longer term process with the objective to reverse this inequality. And there's ways around it. So we really have to be much more inventive ourselves also as institutes and creative. But virtual classrooms can play a huge role in that. So thank you. Yeah.
Thank you very much, Lindy. As I am also a fan of having open critical discussions within our network. I mean, I have the feeling that we all agree with each other on different points. There's a warm exchange within the chat. It's going to be a chance to make a top 3 of this within the next 15 minutes. I've heard a lot about networks, about investing in blended approaches, using knowledge which is already in the South available. Is there anybody in the room who says, I totally disagree with the points made? If you want to speak out, this is your last famous 2 minutes within this room. You may put it also in the chat. Because there's a lot of friends in the room who are agreeing with each other. And unfortunately, if this were as a physical seminar, we will be having a very lively coffee break after the 2 minutes. It's also, you can see that through digital chats, we can have also networking sessions. People want to speak to each other after this.
I would like to add something, and with the risk of being abandoned from this room, but I think, I don't know what the cost is of a PhD student, but if I would have to choose between 10 bachelor students or a few PhD students, I really would go for the bachelor students, because they will have their feet on the ground, and they will make the change in the industry. And if I look at the PhD students, they come back, they have their PhD, all good and fine, but they stay in the educational institutes. So yeah, if I have to throw a stick, that would be the stick I would like to throw.
I think it could be catched in a few different ways. People do agree with you. I think we should carry this discussion on into the main room later on. As we have 1 minute left in this room, thank you very much, everybody, for this lively discussion. It's been a pleasure to hear from our partners in the South on their views on what has been proposed on the table by Dirk Jan, by Lindy, by Hans, and by Dr. Ba. Just a small announcement, we have a 15-minute break. During this 15-minute break, I will try to summarize the top 3 do's, and I don't really have a don't. Let's continue the discussion in the main room at 11:45. So thank you very much, everybody, and I hope to see you in 15 minutes. And I think that will be shifted. Jansje will be shifted back to the main room automatically, or do we have to leave?
You will.
Okay.